I'd like to get started with the Fireside Chat. We're very honored to have Chad Wiebesek, the Director of Social Media and Interactive Marketing, here with us today. I've known Chad for years. I've known Chad since when he worked with Sean Hickey at PWB, one of our session speakers earlier today. And Chad has been instrumental in helping us source speakers for the event and helping us get the word out, helping us think through the Center for Digital Engagement, connecting us with people who can kind of help us in our educational mission, in particular in moving students to that next level. So it's really a great honor to have Chad today. You know, we talked about this as an opportunity to synthesize over what had happened during all of the morning sessions. So Chad and I are going to chat around. Chad has a big reveal we're going to get to in a moment. So we're going to have a first period here where we're going to be talking, asking him some questions about the big reveal, and then I have a few other questions which I'm pretty sure, based on the questions I heard today, will really resonate with the audience. But then we're going to have the opportunity for the audience to ask questions. And we have student helpers with microphones, and so when you have a question, just raise your hand. The student helper will run to you with the microphone so that when you ask the question, everybody can hear it. Now, we'll see if that actually works or not, but that's the plan. So, Chad, welcome.
Thank you, everyone, for having me. Thanks, Bud.
So, should we go directly to the big reveal?
Sure, I guess that's as good as any place to begin. For the first time ever, some Michigan notable destinations, hiking trails, state parks, and national parks will soon be visible in Google Street View maps. So for the first time ever, anybody around the world will be able to virtually visit some notable Michigan iconic destinations and locations from the comfort of their own desktop. So we have a little video preview that we'd like to unveil.
Okay, now So, Chad, I noticed you were put that thing on. How much did it weigh?
So the device is called Google Trekker, is what it is. It's essentially a 42-pound backpack. It's got, as you saw, 15 cameras mounted overhead. And these cameras capture 360-degree panoramic photographs every 2.5 seconds. So as you can imagine, we took it to all the usual places you would expect us to take it. It was on loan to us from Google. We negotiated for months to be one of the first states in the nation to be part of this Google Trekker pilot program. We're not able to reveal which specific locations we visited. That'll be revealed at a different date, but off the record, you can imagine that the ability to take the Google Trekker backpack places where a motorized vehicle cannot go, such as one of the nation's most popular places where cars have been outlawed for 100 years.
Oh.
All right. So we may or may not have taken it there, but stay tuned in the months to come.
And what about one of the 10 most beautiful places in the United States that It's something about sleeping and so on and so forth. I suspect that might have been
We may,
another
may
one.
or may not have been there as well.
Okay.
Yes, yes. But it was a fun project. So stay tuned in the months ahead, and you'll be able to. We'll have more news around that to come.
You know what's interesting about this to me, and as we were discussing it, is there's this tremendous convergence. When Chad and I were talking about what we were going to do during the Fireside Chat, I said to him, one of the things I've noticed is that everything seems to be converted into some form of digital. At the lunch table, we were talking about how Pure Michigan actually has a travel magazine that's still in print, but most of the activities are digital. We're talking about TV now. CBS just announced in the past couple of weeks that they're going to be doing an online streaming channel. It's sort of called Over the Top, so you don't have to go through cable anymore. You can just do it over the internet. HBO also, you're going to be able to subscribe to just over the internet. Won't require a cable subscription anymore. So the dam seems to be bursting, and it seems like everything has gone digital. And also, maps and sightseeing. I can remember going to the travel store and buying all these travel books and getting all these recommendations when we went on our honeymoon almost 25 years ago. And so talk to us a little bit about that, Chad.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. What we're finding is that the internet is increasingly becoming an influential place where people, research where they're going to visit and what they're going to do once they get there, and also how they're going to share those experiences to their friends and family. When was the last time you visited someplace and sent a postcard back home, or when was the last time you opened up a printed map, right, to get driving directions? We go to Google Maps for that, right, or we take photographs on Instagram instead of sending postcards. So, yeah, the internet is influential.
And so, as I was thinking about this, all of this is kind of golly gee whiz, but you had a couple of stories that you were, by the way, I probably shouldn't cut in, but the Detroit bankruptcy judge just approved the plan for Detroit. So that
great.
just popped up on the iPad here when I opened it up. So hopefully brighter days ahead.
Yeah.
So Chad, we've talked about this, and Pure Michigan has been a leader. And they've been, we talked about this Google Trekker, and this is one of the first states, and you're a leading online tourism destination. I think maybe the #1 or #2 state tourism site. Is that correct?
Yeah, in terms of getting traffic to Michigan.org, the website gets more traffic than any other state tourism website, actually for 7 years running now.
And so that's the lead-in to my first question to you. What is the biggest lesson you learned that can be applied to any business?
What is the biggest lesson that we've learned that can be applied to any business? It is, frankly, it's aligning your social strategy to your business objective. It sounds simple, but it never ceases to surprise me how many businesses just frankly overlook this. I think a lot of businesses jump into social media without knowing why they're doing it or how they're going to measure those results. Let me share a story. Think back to the time when you started a job. You were a new employee, and how important it was for you as a new employee to make a good first impression. When I first started at Pure Michigan, it was probably my third month on the job when my boss pulls me aside and she comes into my office and she says, "Chad, did you see the news?" And I said, "What news?" And she said, "For the first time ever, Pure Michigan has lost its lead in terms of having the most number of Facebook followers. New York has surpassed Michigan for the first time to have more followers." And I was completely devastated, by that news, right? Because it was a new job, and I was trying to make a good, good impression. So what I did is I went back to Facebook, and I looked at New York's Facebook page, and what I saw surprised me. This is publicly accessible data. Any one of us can go to any brand's Facebook page to see these metrics. And what I saw surprised me. The average age of New York's Facebook fan was between the ages of 13 and 17 years of age. And I was baffled by that, because if New York's business objective is to try to entice teenagers, preteens that don't even have driver's licenses, right, to somehow spend their hard-earned allowance money to hitchhike from another state to New York, right? If that's their business objective, then they're doing the right job, right? But if their objective is to reach influential people that have money to spend, then they're completely missing the mark. So that was interesting. But that wasn't the full story. I went to another Facebook page for a comparison, and I'm trying to arm myself with data, right, to go back to my boss to say, look, it's not just the numbers that matter, it's the quality of followers that matter. So very easily, I could have gone to our own Facebook page, Pure Michigan, because I know we're doing a good job. But I went to Florida's Facebook page, and what I saw there also surprised me. The average age of the state of Florida's Facebook fan is between the ages of 35 to 44, right? So they were reaching the right audience, and the majority of their fans lived in other states. And again, this was all publicly accessible data. So with that, I just went back to my boss, along with our own data, and said, look, yes, New York, has more followers, but their engagement level is low, and they're reaching the wrong audience. So my best advice for businesses getting started is, ensure that you're reaching the right audience, identify who your audience is, where they spend time online, and then connect with them there.
Okay, so, and if your audience is composed of 13-year-olds playing Clash of Clans, then maybe that's the right one for you. Okay, because I have a son who does this, so very familiar. So here's another question. And this kind of comes up we have two tracks. We had a search track and we had a social track. And you might ask yourself, well, if I'm already going gangbusters, say, in social media, why should I invest in search? Or vice versa. If I'm already doing great in search, why should I invest in social media? And in particular, if if I have a good Google AdWords campaign going, why bother with social media? I've got the problem solved.
Yeah. So philosophically, we feel that they complement one another. Search engine marketing and social media, they complement one another. The way that we look at it is this. With search engine marketing, it costs some money, right, to advertise, right, to drive traffic to your website. So if you stop advertising, the traffic stops. But with social media, more or less that traffic is free. So we use social media as a way to engage with people. We share marvelous photographs that people send to us, and we share photographs as a way to inspire people to someday dream about visiting Michigan. So search and social complement one another, but one is, think of it this way, one is search is paid, whereas social media is something that you own. You own those channels. They complement one another.
And I also always tell people that people can only search for what they actually already know to search for. And social is a way for you to put an idea into people's heads. And we actually had a nonprofit we worked with. I was astonished. It's the Fair Trade Fund, and they do a campaign about human trafficking. And they have this, this thing they do called the slavery footprint. And when they first came to us, I thought, how are we ever going to advertise this through search? Because who's ever going to look for that? Well, sure enough, we'll do slavery footprint as a keyword. And it worked fantastically well. And what we discovered was they actually have a whole media campaign They get on shows like Katie Couric. They get in the New York Times. They get in other publications talking about this topic. And then they push, well, you can go take our survey to see if you're purchasing products that may be involved in this. And so people, lo and behold, go and do it. And it's sort of a thriving thing. But that's one of those cases where you have to kind of put the bug in people's ear to think about searching. So they're definitely very complementary. So why do you think, we've talked about a lot of success for the Pure Michigan campaign. What is it that you think has made it so successful?
It's a number of things. One is, we have a talented team. We have a great product to market. I don't think people, realize, Michigan has more lighthouses than any other state in the nation, or more golf courses, or more freshwater coastline than any other state in the nation. This is an absolutely gorgeous state. So we have a beautiful product to market. We're proud that that Pure Michigan ranks #1 or #2 on more social networks than any other state in the nation. But frankly, we don't measure the success of what we do by how many followers we have. We measure our success by creating content that engages people, that inspires them to want to share our content with their friends and family. Think about this. I think regardless of the business that we're in, or the industry that we're in, or the size of our organization, if we work for a company where we have 1 social media employee or 10, I wish we had 10, I think there's 2 fundamental challenges that we're all facing in this room. I think the first is all of us as consumers, we are bombarded with advertising messages each and every single day. From the time we wake up and roll over bed and check our Facebook page and we see some ads, to commuting to work and driving past billboards, to commuting back home, listening to the radio and watching TV. We get 3,000 marketing messages a day, right? That is information overload. Attention is at a deficit. That's problem #1, okay? I think the second problem we're all facing is that people don't trust brands. People don't trust companies. And people don't trust, they surely don't trust government nowadays. So on the one hand, you have lack of time, lack of attention, right? On the other hand, you have people don't trust us. So as a company, right, what do we do? What do we do? I think the answer lies in turning to whom people do trust. And who do people trust nowadays? They trust people like themselves, right? Their friends and family. So for us, for Pure Michigan, what we do is we look to make our fans the hero in everything we say and everything that we share on social media. So we look to create opportunities to inspire our fans to send us stories of how great Michigan is, so that they can share it with their friends and family. Because it's one thing if a message comes from your company saying how good you are, how great your product is, but that message and that trust is totally different if it comes from somebody else, right? Somebody that you actually know. Let me ask a question. And be honest. Let me see a show of hands. How many of us have ever gotten annoyed that our phone was ringing? What is that? That's like 90% of us in this room. And that's funny that 90% of us have frankly gotten annoyed that another human being wants to talk to us. Why is that? I think it's the same reason why, we love text messaging, right? Because, we can reply to you on our time and our terms. We love TiVo. We love DVR, right? Because I can watch TV on my time and my terms. I love email, right? Because I can get back to you in my time and my terms. So, that's the problem that our businesses, all of us, are facing here is, time is at a limit, and how do we cut through the clutter? We cut through the clutter by inspiring people to share stories about Michigan to their friends and family.
Okay, so that's interesting. So basically, instead of talking about yourself, you get others to talk about you in a way that you want them to. I mean, in a nutshell.
Yeah, about 80% of the content we share comes from travelers visiting Michigan. 20% comes from us. It's about us. So, you know, we're constantly scanning Instagram and Twitter and Facebook for stories and photographs and content that actual vacationers, travelers, residents are sharing here in Michigan. And then we turn around and we share that. And people love when we find a photograph that they sent to us and we share it. People love it. They love that recognition from a brand like Pure Michigan to share their photograph on their behalf.
So that's good, because that leads into our next question, which is, so how do I get started? And in particular, what advice do you have for businesses just starting out with social media? What should they do to get that dynamic rolling for them?
You know, I think it's important to understand who your audience is, where do they spend their time online, and then connect with them in a meaningful way where your audience, where your customers are, you know, online. I'll share a story with you. This is probably the second worst day in my professional career I've ever had. And unfortunately, it was at Pure Michigan. It was at you know, my organization. It was the second probably worst day I've ever had. And also, actually, it was the third day on the job. What happened was this. It was a terrible way to start this fun career. So what happened was we had posted on Pure Michigan's Facebook page a wonderful story of a famous Hollywood actress who flew all the way from sunny California, all the way to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and she spent the week in Ann Arbor visiting all the restaurants, going to all the art galleries and all the bookstores and having a great vacation. And she was well known. She was a famous Hollywood actress. She flew back to Hollywood and she wrote a story about her great trip here. And she wrote it on her blog. Nothing wrong with that, right? That's innocent. So we shared this great story, right? We published it on the Pure Michigan Facebook page. Within mere moments, it backfired. We had people, fans, coming out in just massive arms, just lambasting the page, just raking us through the coals, saying, "How dare you, Pure Michigan, post this story from Jane Fonda?" Jane Fonda was who wrote this story. Now, for those of us in the room, Jane Fonda, yes, she was a famous Hollywood actress, but also during the 70s, she was a political activist. She was a Vietnam War protester, and at the time, she was a quite, evidently still even today, quite a polarizing figure, right? Quite inflammatory. So people were pissed that we posted this great story of this well-known person because she was a Vietnam War protester. And so so people were attacking the page. They were tagging their friends and family saying, "Hey, Joe, you know, unlike the Pure Michigan page." They were telling people to unlike the Pure Michigan page. This is my third day on the job, and this is the second worst day of my professional life. Like, what do I do? And and I'm trying to impress my boss, and everyone's looking at me, you know, to make a call. I got to make a call. Like, what do I do, right? People are unliking the page, and we're losing followers by the minute. And, you know, do I delete the status update, right? Do I just wipe it clean, right? Do I follow up with some of the individuals and apologize, right? Do I start deleting all the vulgarities on the page? You know, what do I do? Any number of approaches. So what I did was sometimes doing nothing is doing something in life. And what we found was our fans came to our defense. So we wrote it out and we monitored the situation closely, and then our fans came to our defense. So in a short time, other people were saying, you know, "Hey, look, just lighten up, all right? You know, this was 30 years ago. Let bygones be bygones. Give people a second chance in life." And so We just let the story play out. And then, we just kind of moved on, from the situation. So the best practice there for any business that's looking to get started with social media is to know who your audience is, right? In our case, 65% of our fans on Facebook are over the age of 45. So they absolutely knew, and they were absolutely around during the Jane Fonda era, right? So we learned a valuable lesson, a number of lessons. And one of the lessons was we keep politics out of the page. So anything that's close to, anything that's close to politics, we're careful. We keep politics out of the page. Know your audience.
Yes, and I think that keeping politics out of it, just a few other topics generally that are good to avoid, is good. But what I want to come back to here is, so there's this whole idea, and it kind of started with Mary Hennigy in the morning, where Mary was saying basically, hey, be social, it's social. Don't try to do it all yourself, okay, because it's social. And what you've just told here is a story of, okay, think about the social aspect of it. Sometimes it's not always up to you to talk. Let those around you talk. It makes it less about you, right, if other people come to your defense and other people join in on the conversation. So it becomes less about you being attacked or appearing to attack and more about really a group and social dynamic. And I think this may be one of the things that's actually hardest for people. As you pointed out, is sometimes the best strategy is to do nothing and sort of and let the dynamic take control. I think that can be hard for people to do. Okay. Now, how do you know that your social media is working?
That's a good question. I speak at a lot of conferences around the U.S. and abroad, and when I get asked that question, I like to reflect a moment and say, how do you know when social media is working? That's like asking, does a stick work? Does a stick work? Social media is just a tool. A stick is just a tool. A stick is good if you're going to use it to prop open a door. A stick works rather well for that, but a stick works less well if you're trying to do very delicate eye surgery, right? So likewise with social media, right? It's just social media is a tool, a communications tool that should align with your overall communications objective and your business strategy, right? So social media is good for some things, less so for other things. And however you use social media, if it's to increase brand awareness, or if it's to drive sales to one extent or another, or if it's to improve customer satisfaction, ensure that you're measuring the right metrics. So for brand awareness, it might be a good thing to look at how many times your company is mentioned, on Twitter, for instance, how many mentions of your company hashtag. If you're looking to drive sales, focus on driving traffic to your website. As a matter of fact, so I'd mentioned that Michigan.org is the nation's most visited state website for 7 years in a row. Any given month, there's about 3,000 sources of traffic to Michigan.org any given month. And consistently, every single month, Facebook is one of the largest drivers of traffic to Michigan.org. And that's intentional. So for every Facebook photograph we share, or for every Facebook status update, a link or a news story, we always have a link that points back to Michigan.org. So it's not simply because we have the most, one of the largest followers on Facebook. It's because we're judicious in how we use our social media to drive traffic to Michigan.org. And I want to share one story, actually. One simple thing that we did increased social traffic to our website by 182% in 1 month. It was very simple. And what we found surprised us when we were doing this analysis. A majority of traffic from Facebook and Twitter, right, is accessed through mobile apps, right? And a lot of traffic that goes to Michigan.org is mobile traffic. What we found was that Facebook and Twitter were underreporting upwards by 40% traffic to our website. Because the reality is Google Analytics counts traffic from mobile apps as direct traffic. And that's key. That was when the light bulb went off. So we published a blog story, the most popular blog story we had published all year. Got 4 times as more traffic to this blog story than the homepage of Michigan.org. And so when we went into Google Analytics, what we found was that the majority of that traffic that was landing on this blog story was direct traffic. But the only place that we shared this blog story was Facebook and Twitter. So how could it be direct traffic? Direct traffic means that somebody typed in the URL directly into the browser window or they had bookmarked it. It just didn't add up. So we did all this intelligence and all this digging, and so we identified that mobile traffic is considered direct traffic according to Google Analytics. So with that learning, moving forward, what we do now, every link that we post on Facebook or Twitter that points back to Michigan.org, we append that link, the back end of that link, with some Google Analytics code. It's UTM code is what it is, some Google Analytics code. So now Google Analytics is able to properly attribute traffic from Facebook mobile app and Twitter's mobile app as social media traffic, not direct traffic.
Well, this leads into a great question, Chad, because one thing that we've seen happen, about 2 years ago, we actually had a track at the Search Marketing Workshop on mobile. And at that point in time, we had maybe about 1/3 of the people who came to the workshop went into the mobile track, and the other 2/3 went into our more traditional track. And I asked them why, and they said, well, you know, I'm still trying to figure out the basics. And, you know, to be honest, and this is really just 2 years ago, we were looking at about 10% mobile traffic across the websites around the country. But that has changed, and I thought I'd ask you to speak a little bit to, you just mentioned mobile. How many of your visitors are on mobile? What are you doing to deal with mobile?
I think for many businesses, you know, once mobile traffic reaches a certain threshold, likely it's 10%. I think once mobile traffic approaches 10%, that's when it starts landing on like management's radar. You know, and in our case, you know, we get anywhere from 30 to 40% of all of our traffic is from mobile devices. So subsequently, what we've done, Michigan.org was one of the first states in the nation to build a responsive website, responsive web design. And this was, you know, 2.5 years ago or so. It was actually the second state in the nation to have a fully functioning, responsive website. And at the time, the web development community was responsive was so new that the industry didn't even have a term to call it. It was even, you know, it was called responsive or fluid or adaptive web design. And so what it's allowed is one website that, you know, magically adapts to whatever device you're viewing it on. If it's an 18-inch desktop monitor, or a 10-inch, you know, tablet, or a small little iPhone, it's one website that's universally accessible. So that's what we did, you know, 2.5 years ago. And what we're looking to do as we move forward is take the responsive website to the next level. So not only is the website responsive, but the content is responsive as well. So for instance, if we identify that a visitor to Michigan.org is accessing the website on a mobile device, we want to serve and deliver some content that's more relevant to them than other content. The whole website doesn't need to be displayed on a cell phone if you're traveling in Michigan. You only want what's important to you.
Okay. That's an emerging area, and I think we're going to hear more about it from years to come. We're actually even launching a new course this January about how to deal with mobile. And I'll just leave it at that. It should be an exciting course to teach. So let's kind of conclude this, set of Q&A between me and you with a question that I hope will go right to the hearts of many in the audience, and that is, what are the biggest challenges facing small businesses? I mean, Pure Michigan, I'm not sure how high staffed up you are. Sounds like you may be doing it with, smaller staff. But you have a lot of resources at your disposal. So what are the challenges facing small businesses, and how can they overcome them? What's a way out for a small business?
I think regardless of the size of the business, if it's small or large, I think the challenges, one of the challenges facing all of us in this room is just lack of time. How do we have the time to manage all this stuff? We're active on 8 different social networks. That's a lot, but it's also a little, because there's dozens of social networks out there. So, I think the challenge is just for a small business owner that has a lot on their plate already and wears many different hats. How do you just find the time to do this? One of the approaches, one of the techniques that we take is we develop a content calendar, an editorial calendar. And we plan out 30 days in advance what we're going to say, where we're going to say it, and how we're going to say it, an editorial calendar. It takes time, regardless of the business, it takes time to have an editorial calendar. But once you have it, it actually saves time, because there's never a day where you're struggling trying to think, what should I post on Facebook or on Twitter, because you have this editorial calendar. And once you start mapping it out, what you find is you're able to tie your social strategy to your business objective, right? An editorial calendar really helps with that. Another thing that we do, about 80% of my time is spent managing social media for Pure Michigan. The rest of it is assisting the 17 administrators that we have in our organization that oversee 35 social media accounts. Cumulative, that's about 2 million or so social media followers. So the rest of my time is spent educating them on how to grow their community and connect with followers and all that. So what I tell them is spend 30 minutes a day with social media, right? Spend 30 minutes a day. And break that 30 minutes up into 10 minutes at a time, right? So 10 minutes in the morning, 10 in the afternoon, and then 10 later in the day, And that way, if you break it out into chunks like that, you'll be more active on social media, and you'll be more present, right? And it doesn't take a lot of commitment if you break it up that way.
I'd heard the editorial calendar idea is a great idea, and it works well in professional organizations. So I know a software development firm that uses that idea, and they actually have their developers on a schedule so that once every 45 days, one of the developers has to write a blog post. It's not that blog posts are every 45 days, but they have 45 developers and they write one a day, and so they have a little schedule like that. And so if you have an organization which is really a knowledge organization, this can be a good way to spread the load and still keep the engines running. And then this particular organization I'm thinking of, they may be in the room. They actually have a person, their marketing person is in charge of kind of overseeing the schedule, making sure people stay on topic, none of this, blogging about what you did over the weekend. It's got to be a professionally oriented content. And that seems to work. It takes discipline, but they definitely want to play this game, and they're starting to make a big splash. It works, okay, as an organizing tool. Well, I think with that, I'm sure there are questions that people have over the day, and so we're going to invite just random questions from the audience. And then we're going to see how quickly we can get Chad to respond on his feet here.
Give me a second. Hi, yes, I was
Hi.
just curious if you had a policy about negative comments on your Facebook or any of your social accounts. If you, a lot of people say don't censor, which I agree with, but I was just curious about your attitudes and practices around those.
Yeah, so we actually have three different social media policies for our organization. We have three. We have a policy that governs how employees can use social media, so an internal use social media policy, because our organization has 500 employees. We have a social media policy for the social media administrators. So we have 35 official accounts that are managed by 17 different social media administrators. So we have a policy governing the official use of social media by the administrators. And then we have a third policy, which is community guidelines for fans that follow us on Facebook and Twitter and elsewhere. So we have rules of engagement, things like if you're going to say the same thing again and again and again and again, we reserve the right to delete some of your comments. If you are going to spam your advertisement to our page, we reserve the right, to remove you. If you harass somebody else or use vulgarity, right, we reserve the right to delete comments, right? But we have that there as a safety net. The reality is the best practices, just like with this Jane Fonda story, 9 times out of 10, we just, fans, when you have a beloved brand that people love and really connect with emotionally, more often than not, people come to your brand's defense, your company's defense. So 9 times out of 10, we don't ban people or delete comments, but we do have that policy in place, and it's publicly visible on the Facebook page.
Chad.
Hello.
Hello. So I have a question. The question is, what is the future for social?
What is the future? If I had a crystal ball and I could look, 5 years, down the road, the future of social is what our teenagers are using today. Because 5 years from now, our teenagers are going to be, college students, and they're going to be adults. So I think a good kind of barometer of where is all this shifting is to look at, what our teenagers are using today, right? So, a lot of like visual social networks are popular, and what is popular with them today is likely to stay popular 5 years from now.
I have a follow-up question to that because you're making me think of my 14-year-old and his various social game obsessions. Has Pure Michigan thought about a gaming presence on any platform of any sort?
Well, yeah. What would the game be? It could be any number of fun games.
Well, these adventure strategy games, you could see Michigan landmarks playing a role right away.
Yeah, try to guess this landmark. Where is it at?
Travel
Yeah,
bingo. All
there
right,
you
we
go.
have a suggestion from the audience.
Yeah, going back to knowing your audience. So we're primarily targeting travelers, right? In any family, right? The primary decision maker is the female, is the wife. So we're targeting in our advertising, in our TV commercials, we're targeting women between the ages of 35 and 54 who have a household income of $70,000 or more per year. So while gaming would be fun and it would be a great way for people to interact with the brand and learn more about Michigan, that's probably an opportunity that's a little bit further out from us.
Okay, well, I like the coming back to focusing on who is our target customer That was a great response. Okay, so other question. All we have Ashlyn has.
Hi, Chad. I don't know, have you seen the Oregon website? Have you been there?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Yep.
What I liked about that is that people who want to visit the state can go and click on different regions, and people in those areas actually recommend what their favorite things to do are in that area, where they like to eat. Do you have something like that on your site, or would you consider doing something like that? Because that really helped me in my trip planning to Oregon.
Yeah, so you like the ability for people to recommend, people that live in Oregon to actually recommend things to do and places to see? Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good approach. We invite people. We see ourselves as the travel concierge for Michigan. So if there's anybody in Michigan or outside of Michigan that wants to visit here, or maybe they're already here and they're looking for tips of where to go or what to do, we absolutely want them to reach out to us in any possible way, by connecting with us on Twitter or on Facebook, or asking us a question on Instagram, or even visiting our website, sending us an email, or picking up the phone. So we try to make it very, very easy for people to connect with us in the most convenient way, that's convenient for them. So we oftentimes get asked those types of questions from travelers of things to do and places to see, and we answer them routinely on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. We don't have that function on Michigan.org, but we act as a travel concierge in our social efforts.
Okay.
My question is actually this. Do you think at one point, where actually we're noticing right now Michigan State start pick up and becoming going out of the depression or the recession we've been through and becoming a more developed state? Are Pure Michigan, is it looking to use LinkedIn as to bring investors and employee from inside and outside the states to Michigan in the future?
So our organization has a LinkedIn presence. It's the economic development side of our organization. We're active on LinkedIn, and we're using that network to talk to businesses who are looking to either move to Michigan, or existing businesses here that are looking to expand and grow. So the answer is yes. We have an active presence on LinkedIn, and actually we have 10 different LinkedIn pages for our various departments. Yeah, LinkedIn is a great social network for businesses and B2B marketing.
So yeah, just to really quickly clarify this, for those who don't know, Pure Michigan is actually, I guess, a brand of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and those are the folks who are really trying to foster economic development. It's a public-private cooperation, and so Pure Michigan actually extends beyond just tourism in some sense. If you didn't know that, you know it now. Ashlyn, you had a question in the back?
Sure. So I was actually wondering, in my mind, from a Pure Michigan standpoint, actually being an Ohioan myself, I think that part of what the brand essence is to me, and what the appeal that I can see, is within like the television commercials and just the pure emotion that those bring to you. So my question more along the lines of kind of like your individual social network strategies that lead up to your digital strategy, that lead up to the brand and your marketing strategy as a whole. How can you, or how do you, go about conveying that emotion in a platform like Facebook or Twitter to kind of like engage your people and grab them emotionally like television can do?
It was probably the first 4 weeks or so, I grappled with how to translate the majestic Pure Michigan commercials, right? How to, if I could conjure Tim Allen's voice, which is very poetic, right? Talking about just all the natural beauty. How do I translate the TV commercials, right, onto a Facebook status update. Because honestly, if I talked like how Tim Allen talks in the TV commercials, I would get punched in the face, right? Nobody talks like that in real life, right? And so we use social media to humanize brands, right? Many of us do. So how do I translate that? And I grappled with that, right? The first 4 weeks or so. And the answer was simple. We use social media. One of the ways we use it is to humanize the brand, right? To connect with people on an emotional level, an individual level, right? So people love the TV commercials, but and it touches them, it tugs at their heartstrings. And so equally, we touch people on an individual basis when we share their photograph, when we ask somebody, can we share your photograph? People love it. They love hearing from the brand, and they feel honored that we're asking them for the privilege of sharing their photograph. We also don't share everyone's photograph. We get 200 600 photographs a day, from Instagram and Twitter and our Facebook page, right? So that hundreds of photographs. And who would have imagined, 5 years ago that we would have, hundreds of people out there, all across the state of Michigan capturing photographs, just begging a chance for us to share them, right? And I don't have to pay anybody for these photographs, and they're free, and they're not my staff. I didn't take them. So how do we choose which photographs to share? Because we've aligned our social strategy to our business objective, and the brand, the Pure Michigan brand, is majestic, mythic, and magical. So we look for those types of photographs to share, right? So we look for the photographs that are majestic, mythic, and magical, and that's a way that further aligns our social activity to our business brand, and it reinforces the brand.
So I wanted to know if you could offer any advice on dealing with parody or satire and any confusion they may cause with your brand.
Yeah, who here has seen those funny, YouTube videos, right? Winter Virgin, I think, is a funny one, right? A number of us have. I think the guy, John Kerfoot is his name. I think he's hysterical. He's funny. I think half the time it's funny. I think the other half the time the videos are offensive. Off the record, we kind of turn a blind eye to it, and I think it's more or less kind of a coming of age of the brand. The brand is still relatively young. It's only 7 years old. Pure Michigan's only 7 years old. Before that, it was Great Lakes, Great Times, Winter Wonderland, and some others. So, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. I think it just it's kind of a coming of age, of the brand. We're not going to come in there as a state of Michigan. You got to take that down. That would quickly backfire.
So we have time for one more question. And I believe, ma'am, that you have that question in your hand.
I'll try to make it a good one, but if not, I can hand it off to my colleague. Chad, thank you so much for being here. Very interesting.
My pleasure.
You were speaking about Pure Michigan photographs. I wanted to know if there was any plans on putting more photographs in Detroit Metropolitan Airport, specifically in the international arrivals area.
The answer is yes. There's actually ongoing conversations with the Detroit Airport about furthering our partnership with them. So yeah, I would expect in the months to come that you'll start seeing more of a Pure Michigan presence in the Detroit Airport.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Well, Chad, do you have a final word?
Yeah, thank you, everyone, for your time and attention today. I'll be around for a while. I hope to get the chance to meet you personally if you have any more questions. Thanks.
Okay, so I have one final announcement. We actually have next year's workshop already booked. It's going to be Friday the 13th of November. So a magical date. This year we were almost Halloween, so I think next year we are going to get kind of a spooky date. And so we'll be in touch with you in late summer. That's when we'll run our best sales, so pay attention. And I'd like to thank you all for coming. It's really you who makes this, and we are so happy to have you. So thank you and goodbye.